Welcome to Big Life Weekly Series, where we empower high achievers to break free from limits, unlock their natural potential, and live a big life. I'm your host, Robert Acosta, and each week we will explore the strategies, mindsets, and tools you need to thrive, not just in your professional career, but in every aspect of your life. Whether you're a leader looking for a better balanced life, an entrepreneur aiming for sustainable success, or someone ready to take the next step toward your best self, this podcast is your space to grow, reflect, and take action. Let's dive into today's episode. Hello, I'm Robert Acosta. I'm with Matan Hazanov from Enigma Ventures in Toronto, Canada. Hi, Matan, how are you?
Hey Robert, I'm great. How are you doing?
Great, I'm great, thank you. So let's jump right in and start showcasing your business. So, Matan, can you give us a 90-second overview of what your business does and why you got into it?
Sure. We are a venture capital fund based in Toronto. We invest in early stage B2B vertical market software businesses. Our goal is to invest in these companies while they're at the early stages, right before they're about to pivot and scale. And our business model is very simple. We give them money for a certain percentage ownership in their business and hopefully help them succeed. And when they succeed, we benefit tremendously, profit, give our investors a lot of money, and take some of those profits for ourselves.
Right. So how did you start doing that? What drove you? What drove you to do this?
I'm a lifelong entrepreneur. Everybody in my family is an entrepreneur.
Right.
I've started a couple of businesses myself with varying degrees of failure. And so if I would ever have a job, it would be in helping other entrepreneurs be successful or scaling up entrepreneurship. So instead of starting one business, I'm a small part of many businesses. So there's a lot of reasons why venture capital is great for someone like me. Number one, again, you get to scale entrepreneurship. You get to invest in the best people in the world. Like my job is to find the next Elon Musk and give him money. And then when they're successful, pretend that I was a small part of that, right? And the other thing is it's a very dynamic role. Like no day is the same. One day you're doing research and diligence. Another day you're at an event. Another day you're helping a company grow. You're on board meetings. It's a very dynamic role. And fundamentally, the last reason is that the more world-changing a business is, meaning the more impact it has, the more it changes people's lives in a positive or sometimes negative way, the more money you make. So to combine those two elements is actually pretty amazing.
Oh, great. So that leads me to the next question, which is what do you enjoy most about your work in this financial venture business?
Yeah, those things, man. It's a
Okay.
dynamic role. You get to work with some of the best people in the world because that's really your job is to find them and give them money. And essentially, you're scaling entrepreneurship. So it's not the same as building a startup, but you sit on a board meeting of a startup and you're dealing with real issues that companies face, and it's part of your role as an investor to help them figure out those issues. So it's pretty fun. If
Yeah.
you like that, it's pretty fun. And another thing is actually um, you learn a lot. Like there's a lot of things I don't know, obviously. And when you're involved in these companies, you have to really to invest in them, you have to learn quite a lot. So if you're into learning if you're into learning, it's a very good career to have.
Yeah, you have to have that curiosity gene that you want to know, and you're really interested in your clients, right? In what they do.
Right.
So, how do you define success in the work you do?
Primarily, it's returning a ton of money to our investors. That's really our success. Now, of course, I want to help companies grow and be a good partner and add value to the ecosystem and all that stuff. But fundamentally, it's returning a lot of capital to our investors.
Okay, that's great. So, I'm just curious, what is the biggest problem or challenge you see in your industry? Because lending money is risky, but I always say there's lots of money in the world. You just need to put it in the right place. So how are you solving those problems or challenges that you face to yourself, your clients, or your colleagues?
Yeah, it's very important that we don't actually lend money. We buy shares in most cases in the companies we invest in. So it very much, if the company doesn't do well, we don't do well, right? There's no like, oh, we'll take the assets and sell it for parts. There's a lot of issues with our industry. I'll focus on one that I see a lot because I have a tremendous inbound of entrepreneurs either coming to me for funding or advice because I do a lot of content online and that just attracts a lot of people to you, right? And one of the issues I see quite a lot is that entrepreneurs feel that they should go down the path of raising venture capital when they shouldn't. There are a lot of entrepreneurs out there that can make a lot of money if they just change their mindset from I'm going to be a startup, raise money, become a multi-billion dollar business to I'm just going to build a really good business and make a lot of money for me and my shareholders. There's there's a big difference between those two things. And a lot of the people that try to raise venture capital shouldn't, because venture capital is a very, very specific type of asset class targeting a very specific type of early stage company.
Right. Well, having said that, my next question would be, who is your ideal client and what significant outcomes can they expect when they work with you?
Yeah, use the word client a lot, which is appropriate, I think. Our
Yeah,
clients
no,
are really the investors, right? Our
it's a partner.
investors. Yeah, it's the people that give us money to invest. I think the startups we invest in are more of the product to the extent we're offering a product to our customers. But I'll say it like this, the ideal startup is, I'll tell you kind of the mindset. You maybe taking a step back here. In order to make the risks that we take worthwhile, we have to be able to 50x or 100x our investment in 7 years. Now, to do that is insane. You think, well, how could you possibly do that? Well, the types of businesses we're investing in have to have the potential to scale very quickly. Meaning, if we're investing at them when they're at $1 million in revenue, we have to see that company getting to $100 million in revenue in those same 7 years. And of course, there's exceptions. Sometimes you don't sell a business; its value is not coming from its revenue, but you get the idea. If you're going to be $1 billion business, your revenues have to be pretty high.
Right.
So in order to have those kinds of businesses, you have to be building something interesting and unique. You have to be targeting either a very, very fast growing market or already in a big market, right? You have to be the type of person that can build that kind of business, or at least building in a type of business that can be that large. And just there are very few businesses like that. So we're looking for entrepreneurs that demonstrate a couple of things. They either have traction or track record. They have to show us that they're doing something either in their business today or what they've done in the past, that they're the type of person that can build that kind of business. Now, the business itself will change and morph, whatever, but really at the early stages, you're focusing on the person or the people involved.
Right. So at the end, yes, could be it's a startup or can be an entrepreneur, as you say, but they have to have some record that their idea is working in a small scale, maybe, but has the potential to scale, and it's that there when you jump in, right?
Yeah, and it's important that not to discourage certain people, but there's two things. You better to have both, but you need to have one of two. So traction is within the business itself. Do you have traction in your business that demonstrates something that you're the type of person, and this is the type of business that can grow at venture scale? The other is track record. So this is not necessarily the business itself. This is on the person. So if you don't have traction in your business, but you have a track record as whatever it is, let's say you got a PhD in, whatever, and it's relevant for your industry, and you just accomplished a lot in your life. That is a track record that can help you raise money. It shows that you're someone unique and interesting. Or it could be in another business you've built. It doesn't have to be super successful, but let's say you've built a business before. That's a track record. So there's many different things you can do that's outside of the business that you have today. Meaning, let's say you don't have revenues, right? How are you going to raise money? So there, a track record would be very helpful.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I think that a lot, and mostly now after COVID, there are a lot of people with good track records with their jobs as a business executive, but now they know that they can do more and they want, and there are a lot of people jumping into entrepreneurship without knowing nothing. Even money or not money is something different, but you mentioned it, the mindset of someone that has a job or has had a job for decades versus the mindset of an entrepreneur, it's quite different. So you better train your mind into that, right? So you know how nowadays more people are actively seeking solutions, as those people that I mentioned that jumping into one stage to another to really achieve better outcomes. So what makes you unique in the way you help them achieve those outcomes?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something VCs pitch a lot is my unique value add to startups. I'm a bit more cynical when it comes to this question. I think my value add is the money, right? A startup doesn't come to me for business advice, although they can, I can offer whatever advice. But like I've never built a unicorn startup, so my advice there is quite limited. I can only share what I've seen from other startups, right? My value add is really the money. And I think most VCs, that's their value add is the money. There are some unique exceptions. Let's say you're a top venture firm like Sequoia. Their investment actually has much more value than the money itself because it's a signal to everybody else. And they have a network that's very valuable. Now, I also have a network that's valuable. And of course, I'm a trusted advisor to these companies, to these entrepreneurs. I help make connections. I do a lot to help them. But really, the best entrepreneurs, they don't need my help. Like the time I spend is mostly focused on the companies that aren't doing well, not the ones that are doing well.
Right.
So I think most VCs, 95% of them, their main value is going to be money. Some very unique VCs, the biggest ones and the most well-known ones, their value could be their money plus something else. And of course, there's unique cases out there like corporate venture firms, like corporations that invest. Their value can also be like being a customer, right?
Right.
So I'm talking very much about a typical venture firm. It's going to be the money.
Right. No, I understand it, and I really think that's the real value because I think mostly nowadays there are a lot of people with very good ideas, with very good tracking of what they've done before, but they really stuck in the money part. So they say until I have the money, and that's a tricky question because some people think that you have to have your own money to invest and have your business. When the big companies, they don't start with their own money; they start with other people's money. So understand that's going to be important when people hear this. You don't need money to start your business. You just need a very good idea that it's something that is needed in the market and a good tracking of working hard or having an experience or the credentials to represent your business. And then
I
you
think
have the money.
it's certainly a lot of people. Some of the most exceptional people can raise money based on that. I think the best path for even entrepreneurs that are venture scalable, meaning they can raise money from VCs. Venture capital should be the last resort for money. So you need, like what I did when I started one of my businesses, is that I remortgaged one of my house, right? I remortgaged my house. I took the money to get some of that early traction, right? Like that's the best way to do things. Either develop wealth yourself, get loans, get non-dilutive money from the government, grants, anything like that. But the last source of capital should be venture firms. The last source. It's the most expensive and it's the hardest to raise.
Right. Yeah, that's why it's not lending money. It's really building a partnership that part of the company is going to be the lender, which is not a lender. I know, and now I understand. So, can you tell us some story or a strange thing? What's the strangest or funniest incident you have experienced while working in your business? Do you have some story to share?
It's interesting. I see a lot of nonsense because, again, our inbound is pretty strong. So, at in 2023, really, we would see about 5,000 companies inbound, which for a small team is a lot. 2024 is about the same, at least up until I left the firm I was at. And they're just people that don't know what they're doing. So one guy came to us and he's like, "Listen, I have this amazing thing. We're raising, I think it was raising $100 million, which was pretty ambitious." And I asked him, well, what is your traction today? Like you're raising 100 million. That means you're pretty far along in your business. The guy didn't even launch his product, right? And it's like, no, this is a good price. You think it was raising at $1.3 billion valuation, something stupid like that. I'm like, wow, okay, well, what justification is that? Oh no, sorry. He was raising 100 million today because he said he was going to get to 1.3 billion in revenues in a year.
Okay.
I'm like, my guy, that never happened in human history. Like, what are you doing? It's like, it's one thing to be ambitious, it's nothing to be stupid or crazy, right?
Exactly.
Nobody takes that seriously. Another guy came to us and he's like, oh, I'm building this very, very unique, innovative thing that everybody needs. I'm like, oh, what is it? He's like, well, I can't really tell you because I need an NDA. I'm like, well, can't you tell me anything? Like, why don't you tell me what you figured out? Like, I have to make an assessment, if I'm gonna be interested or not. He's like, no, I can't tell you because I need an NDA. He's like, well, you have to make, this is what he told me. He's like, you have to make a decision quickly because I have so many people interested. So sign an NDA and then you have to make a decision within a few weeks or a couple of weeks or whatever he said. I'm like, what
Wow.
is wrong with you, man? Like, like signing an NDA is like not an easy thing to do. Like, why do we do that? I had no idea if it's software, if it's hardware, what they're doing, what industry, like
Yeah.
nothing. Anyways, don't do
It's
that.
okay. Maybe that's the way you filter people out, right? So you say, well, this is not, it has to have, you have to find a chemistry. You have to know that that person is honest. And so it's not only the hard facts that you take into account, I guess, but the soft skills and the intention, the mindset in a way, how that people think, because you're going to partner with those and you're going to put your money into those. So you have to have that connection kind of, and in the example that you mentioned, there was any connection. So next, okay. So what do you see as the coming trends within this business of capital, and how are you staying on top of that?
Yeah, there's a lot of things going on, as you probably know. AI has really disrupted quite a lot.
Yeah.
Um, I can go over a few different trends I see. I know how interesting it is to your audience. Some of it could be very technical for venture firms. So what we've been seeing is that venture firms there's fewer out there and they're much larger in size. I think that trend is going to reverse. What we're going to see over the next 10 years are much smaller venture funds that are very specialized in very particular industries. We're going to see a lot of industries take off, and we're seeing that today. Like we're seeing in space, space is going to be a huge thing over the next 10, 20, 30 years. Who's going to own the space industry, like leisure space travel, extracting resources in space, managing satellites? That's going to be very big. And we're seeing, like, obviously SpaceX is a big player in that, but there are many, many companies out there innovating in this space, in
Right.
this area.
Hmm.
We're going to see robotics, hardware innovations. That stuff is going to take off, and we're going to see other industries keep going down. Consumer apps, that's a dying industry, right? We're seeing marketplaces die out, right? We're seeing non-AI based software businesses not doing well. So that's happening. What we're also seeing is that venture capital firms are going to be much more nationalized. Over the last 20 years, they've become much more global, meaning a venture firm will have an office in China, they'll have an office in the US, they'll have an office in Europe. What we're seeing is that that's actually going to reverse. One example is Sequoia. They had a big presence in China and they've spun that off. And there's a lot of reasons for it, a lot of good reasons and a lot of bad reasons. One of the reasons is geopolitical risks. As
Right.
um, globalization kind of reverses a little bit, and there's going to be more animosity between, let's say, U.S. and China, we're going to see that multipolar world cement more. And so, if you're going to be in China's orbit, it's not going to be good for you to be a VC from the U.S. investing in Chinese businesses. It
Right.
presents a lot of risks. So we're going to see that happen more.
More locally.
Um,
Mhm.
and I think one of the more important things for entrepreneurs to realize is the trend that startups are going to be built with much smaller teams, with much fewer resources, and they're going to scale much quicker because the tools to build a startup are becoming much more cheaper. Like you can do so much more now with AI that you were able to do 5 years ago or 10 years ago. So your entire customer service team, if you're building a startup today, if you're going to have people, you're going to hire dedicated people to customer service, you're doing it wrong. So a startup that, let's say, got to $10 million in revenue, we need a customer service team of, let's say, 5 people. Let's say, I'm just making up numbers. Today, if it's more than one person, you're doing it wrong. So that's going to happen in many areas. So a typical startup with 100 people 10 years ago, that same team should be 25 people, and that number is going to shrink.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, very, very, very interesting what you said. So, can you share with us what is you talk about failures that you have, we all have failures, and when you understand it, you even like to fail because you learn a lot much more than when you succeed. So, what is the biggest failure or challenge, I would say, you have faced to this point in your life, and how has that shaped the way you do business?
Yeah, it's good. It's a good question because thank God I've had a very blessed life. So I'm going to stick out of the personal stuff. There's been a lot of personal failure, but because everybody lives life and they learn and all that stuff. But in business, I'll say that my biggest failure and things that I regret have been not having focus. I'm the type of guy that I like to do a lot. Like I can't just do one thing. I get not bored necessarily, but there's always a new exciting thing and a lot of opportunities come my way so that I can't always focus on one thing. And so I started a business about, I don't know, it's 8 years ago, 8, 9 years ago now. And it failed ultimately. And I don't think it failed because I didn't build the right business or that it was the wrong idea. I think I failed because I wasn't focused. I was doing other things at the time. I couldn't go all in. I was putting 70% of my time instead of 100% of my time. And that is a mistake. And I keep that mistake keeps repeating in my life. And it's something that I'm working on. But it's a problem. If you're an entrepreneur and you want other people to buy into your vision, you have to be in it 100%.
Yeah, I remember someone asked Bill Gates, and I think he was with his father in that moment in a cafeteria or something, and say, "Well, tell us in one, just tell us one word that define your success." And he said exactly that word: focus. Focus. Just do one thing. And I complement with this with Steve Jobs' answer of, I can be very bad at many things. So I think it was Bill Gates as well as say, I'm very bad at so many things, but there's only one thing that I'm very good at. And with that thing and with that focus, look at the result. I can build an empire. So I teach that to my entrepreneurs and my clients. Focus. You're going to have, and that's Steve Jobs saying, you're going to have beautiful ideas coming into your way, and you have to say no. Not because they're bad ideas, because you're focused on the one you believe, and you need to learn to say no. So I think that's instrumental. Maybe I just answered the next question for you, but let's hear from you. What is that one thing that has been most instrumental in your particular business success?
It's interesting. It certainly wouldn't be focused because I've been lacking that. But there's really a couple of things. I've been very astute in networking, meaning when I meet people, I make sure that I'm always thinking, how do I bring value to them? I take very good care in terms of always bringing 100% in terms of quality to what I do. Like I don't just do things like in poor quality. And over time, that builds a certain reputation. And when you have a certain reputation, it opens doors that otherwise wouldn't be open. So one of the best partners I've had in business, and I'm doing things with them today. I met those people because I did something in the community. I built a charitable organization, and they got involved in that. And over the years, I mean, it just built a little bit of trust, so that when I had an opportunity to work with them, they already knew me in that context,
Of course.
and that already opened that door. Otherwise, that door would not have been open, I don't think. Right? You can never know, but the fact that it was there really helped me out a lot. So I didn't have to do that. I didn't have to build this charitable organization. I did it because I wanted to, and I thought it was the right thing to do, and it was time consuming and difficult. But when you do those things, it helps, right? So another example, one of the best people I've worked with is a guy that reached out to me randomly when I was at my first job. He sent me a guy was looking for a job. He was a smart guy, but he just wasn't getting any luck. And everybody wants to get into venture capital. So he's like, yeah, I just want to meet. I want to learn. I want to get into venture capital. I met him. We offered him an internship, paid internship. And then we helped him get his next job. And the guy stayed a friend 10 years later. And that friendship has really helped me out a lot. Like it's had so many dividends over the years. It's really hard to put into words. But I could have just ignored that email. I didn't know the guy. I had no reason to meet with him. But I view myself and what I do as I'm there also to bring value to people, right? So today I have a link on my LinkedIn where anybody could set up a chat with me. Now it could take several weeks to get on, but any startup, any entrepreneur that wants to get advice, specifically just advice, they can set up some time and they can get my advice.
Perfect. Yeah, I think you have a good insight. So we have two things: focus and networking. But meeting people, so people is instrumental, I think, for any business. So we are people. We like people, and even business are not the structures, are the people. So, but not any people. No, it's not just networking crazy in a crazy way, but to really focus and networking with the right people, because there are a lot of
Yeah.
people that you can talk to, but it's a waste of time, right? People that really have the mindset of, I have everything to scale this, scale my life, not only my business, but my whole life. Those are the kind of people that I think is worth it to network with, right?
Yeah, one of the mistakes I made, when I was a bit younger, when I was in university, maybe a little bit after, was I thought networking was collecting contacts. Like, oh, I've met this person and I know them, and therefore my network is bigger and better, and that could help me out. I got out of that mindset, not too long ago, maybe 10 years ago, I don't know, but that mindset is actually not a good mindset, and it's not that helpful because knowing people doesn't really do much. So networking in and of itself is not that helpful. It's really bringing value to people. Like if I look at a relationship I have with someone, I don't even try to deal. Like I know a lot of very successful people, billionaires and people worth hundreds of millions of dollars. I don't even try to talk. Like to me, it doesn't matter. Like I wouldn't try to talk to them or be involved with them or network with them unless I had something to do with them. Like,
Mm-hmm.
or else, what's the point? Just to know them? And I know a lot of people make this mistake because they come to people I know, they come to me, and they just want that me to be part of their network, rather than looking at the relationship as one of there's something for us to do together. I can bring value to what you do. Here's what it is, or else what's the point?
Yeah, yeah, you're right. Networking that builds a relation, not just a list of contacts. Yeah, that's definitely it. So
And
let's talk about.
I think I saw the stat. I forget where I saw it, but I think any one person could have 150 like contact, like they can deal with 150 people. That includes family and friends and all that. So like to put yourself on the radar of someone and be that one of those 150, you have to be pretty special to them and important, right? And the same vice versa. So you have to
Right,
think, you have to be very careful like how you develop these networks. It's just very difficult to really have a strong relationship with many people.
right.
And it's something that one has to work on. Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It's a waste of time, and time is the only thing that you cannot recover. So you better be very jealous and be very vigilant of every second that you spend in yourself and with other people, right? So talking about the future, what is the next growth area for you personally and for your business?
Yeah, so I got married a few months ago, so that was pretty
Oh,
big.
nice.
That was
Congratulations.
thank you. I mean, that to me was a big move because for a person I had a lot of commitment issues. I just turned 35, so for me it was getting to the point where to get married.
Getting older. So
Yeah, I want to have kids, all that stuff. So
the
doing that
condition.
outside of a family structure is not smart. And so I obviously did that, and of course the person I married was incredible. I don't deserve her, so if she's watching this, she knows that. But people that don't
You
know her,
will.
yeah. So that was important personally. On the business side, I've worked for a couple of funds, right? But I never really, and I was managing director. I was like the head of it, right? Um, but I've never really started my own fund. So about 6 months ago, I left the firm I was at to start my own venture fund. To me, that was a big move. It's a bit risky because it's probably the most difficult time to raise money as a venture fund, as a new venture fund. And so that was the big step. And yeah, we're going. We did our first deal a few months ago. That's going well. We're looking at a bunch of interesting investments. We have a lot of great investors on board, so it's been fun.
Yeah, well, it's going to be busy, as you said at the beginning, but busy good, busy, smart busy, not just crazy business, busy,
Yeah.
right? So let me ask you this funny question. If you could have lunch with one person, living or dead, who would it be and why?
Yeah, I'm Jewish, so I'm gonna take the Jewish approach here, which is
Uh-huh.
there's probably one of the greatest people in history was Abraham, the first Jew, really.
Mhm.
And what makes him unique and why he wasn't the first person to know that there is a God and to to really live by the values that God wants us to live by. But what makes him unique is that he was the first person to come to that conclusion independent, like not independently, but to come to that conclusion independently. He wasn't the first person to do that. But what he did when he came to that conclusion was that he started to teach other people that, right? So he started to build his own schools and really his own followers. And he did that while his father was a very famous idol worshiper. He was a very famous and wealthy person. This is how the story goes. So much so that his son becoming basically an apostate, someone that's going against the religion of the time, put his life in danger. But he had such conviction in what he believed. Again, he didn't have revelation at that point. He just had conviction from his intellect that the religion around him was wrong. And I think that kind of person with that much conviction is the kind of person I want to learn from, especially at the time when you don't have internet, you don't have all access to so many resources. To go into the desert, so to speak, and figure out the truth is something very special. And I would have loved to kind of learn about his thought process a little bit more.
Yeah, the thought process. Yeah, why you risk your life, or it has to be worth it. Particularly, literally worth it of the value of your life.
Right.
You're gonna maybe lose your life.
There's an interesting story coming from the Jewish sources that when Abraham came to this conclusion that it caused a big controversy, they said, renounce this or we're going to throw you into the fire. So they threw him into the fire and he survived. He was unscratched. Abraham's brother was also there and he saw this miracle happening. He's like, oh my gosh, I am also believe in this one God, right? And they said, oh, you're going to believe in the one God? Fine. We're announced that we're going to throw you into the fire. So they threw him into the fire and he burned. Oh. And there's a big lesson here, obviously. The lesson being, one of the lessons, is that if your conviction is based on somebody else and not on how you came to that conclusion, but based on the people around you, then you're going to get burned in the fire, right? When things get tough, you're going to get burned. Whereas if you came to the conclusion independently, meaning you've thought it through, you have real conviction, then the fire won't burn you.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, I know the real conviction has to come from inside. It's from
right.
Inside out. Yeah.
And that's important, by the way, in business, because in venture capital, to differentiate quite substantially from the religious stuff, is that a lot of investors invest because other investors are investing, right? They don't develop the conviction, the thesis from their own work. And that's something I struggle with. Everybody struggles with that, right? We want to, I trust other VCs, especially the credible ones. I trust their analysis. It makes a big difference. But one thing I try to do is to build that conviction myself.
Yeah, that's why that assures my point of it's not only hard data, like the analysis you mentioned. And you mentioned that word, mindset. You have to be a very good reader of the mindset, which part of that mindset is that conviction that, I don't know, maybe I don't have all the hard data. Maybe I cannot demonstrate that this is going to be a success, but there's something, and you can see that conviction that I'm going to put everything and this has to work. We're going to figure it out, the pieces that we don't know, but we're going to make it happen. So when you feel that, when you hear that conviction, maybe it's part of your analysis that say, yes, I'll go with you. I'll go with this guy. Okay. Yeah, and I remember when you were saying about risking your life, I remember Martin Luther King Jr., one of his my favorite quote from him is, he said that if you haven't found something that you are willing to die for, you are not fit to live. Plain as that. You don't deserve to live. So life is risk, and not only financial risk, every kind of risk, criticism, your mindset. So that's why your mindset is very important. So, but you have to have that conviction that even you can risk your life, literally, for something that you believe in. And let me tell you, that is going to be a very good life lived, a very worthy life lived, and it's worth it. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, Matan, what is the best way for people to contact you if they'd like to work with you or discuss referral partnerships?
The best way is on LinkedIn. Just search my name. I think I'm the only person in the world with this name. So search me, you'll find me, and just add me and tell me what you're looking for. I'm pretty active. But also, if you're looking for advice or anything like that, I make a lot of content on this, on raising capital, on building startups from the viewpoint of an investor, not the viewpoint of an operator. And YouTube, on Instagram, on Twitter, just search my name. It's the same thing that you're going to find in every platform. And again, yeah, just reach out on LinkedIn, and I'll respond.
Perfect. Yeah, yeah. LinkedIn is the best way, direct way. Well, that was amazing. I truly enjoyed our conversation. So thank you so much, Matan, for being a guest on the podcast.
Thank you, Robert. I really appreciate the conversation. It was pretty fun.
Thank you for joining me on Big Life Weekly series. I hope today's episode gave you the insight, inspiration, and tools you need to move closer to the life you're meant to live. Remember, true success isn't just about what you achieve. It's about how you feel while you achieving it. If you found value in our conversation, please subscribe, leave a review, and share this episode with others who are ready to embrace their big life. Until next time, stay focused, keep growing, enjoy life, and break free.